Hello, this is Rick, your favorite digital nomad, and you are listening to Finally Breathing Episode 2. Tonight's episode is going to be about an excursion I took outside of Cape Town, one that I really wanted to do, but I had a little bit of, I wouldn't say trepidation, but I was trying not to set too high of an expectation, and that was the excursion of a safari. I think all of us have a very strong idea of what a safari should look like. We have all imagined that experience being classic. Serengeti feel, Kenya, seeing wild exotic animals in their natural habitat, riding in the big vehicles, and just being amazed by all of it. And yes, I had the same expectations as well, but I was a little apprehensive because I was worried that the experience would become gimmicky. I didn't want a touristy approach to it. I wanted a natural approach to it, and I really didn't think I was going to get one. And one thing you have to understand about me, I grew up in Eastern Washington in the rural areas, but I also spent time in a very touristy place called Orcas Island off the coast of Washington State. And of course, tourism is important, but a lot of times I observed behavior of tourists that I didn't really appreciate very much. They were kind of almost deemed a necessary evil in certain ways, just because of the kind of sometimes the inconsiderate manner that they went about things. So I had developed this feeling that I didn't want to ever be a tourist. I didn't want to play tourist. If I traveled, I always had the desire to go about things in a very organic way, that rather than looking at things and going, ooh, ah, take pictures, pose, I just wanted to be there. I just wanted to experience the life and the feel of any place I went to. So the idea of a safari was kind of interesting because I wanted to do it, but I didn't want to be a tourist. I didn't want to fall into that category. I did not want to have that kind of experience. I wanted, as I said before, a natural one. And I really didn't feel like I was going to get it. And boy, was I happily wrong. And I'm going to get into that tonight with you. So basically, it started on an early Saturday morning, very early. My driver was going to pick me up along with several others, and it started off very interestingly in that I walked out the door and I was greeted by two girls from Switzerland, and they were looking at me like, are you with the tour group or with the safari group? And I said yes, but I thought they were with the company and that the person in front of me was our driver. Well, it turns out he was their driver dropping them off in front of my place. So the driver, our actual driver, had instructed them to meet at my place, which we did not know. But he came and he greeted us. His name was Benjamin, and he was a Xhosa, black South African. And in the van was a young girl from Dubai who was visiting Cape Town just like the rest of us. So we set off early morning to outside of Cape Town. And what was really neat about Benjamin was that, well, first of all, he was just a lovely individual, lovely man, really went out of his way to help us, very gentle, very just considerate about a lot of things. And he made a point of making sure that we understood where we were as we would go along the road. He would point out different things. He helped us to understand the concept of the townships around Cape Town, which when you first look at them, you think a lot about the reality of poverty because you look at them and they look like shanty towns. And we were driving along and seeing just these huge townships that looked to us like shanty towns. And while they're not obviously 4-star hotels, he helped us to realize that they aren't as bad as they look. And while, of course, people are still struggling to make a living and to feed themselves, that the townships are just like really any other town. Just, they have their particular circumstance. Anyway, as we were driving along, we entered into, of course, a different form of countryside, but one I didn't quite expect to see. Of course, even though I've been in Africa before and know that, not all of Africa is what we as Americans have seen on TV, I still kind of expected that right away. And I certainly was expecting it when we got to the game reserve. However, when we entered into the mountains and went past the mountains, we entered into a countryside that I was actually very familiar with. Countryside that I had grown up with in Eastern Washington. And he was talking about how this area was used to grow fruit, to grow vegetables. It was more agricultural, and it looked exactly like that. And I was a bit caught off guard by that. I mean, it was lovely. It was wonderful to see all of that and see the variety of terrain. And then we continued on further into the grain fields, which were just magnificent to see, just these rolling hills that stretched into forever, you felt. And the harvest had already happened, but things still looked rather beautiful. And we continued on the drive, and as we drove through every small town we went through, Benjamin made a point of telling us where we were, and he had a very unique way of doing it. He would state the town, and then he would state the town again in another sentence and just tell us a few little things about the town, maybe its history, its population, the number of people that lived on it, etc. So we never exactly had a quiet moment on the bus ride. And then he brought us to a particular point that I didn't realize we were actually going to. When I booked the safari, this is not a good thing. I didn't exactly read everything concerning the safari. I just saw the pictures and thought, okay, this is going to work. The price, yeah, it's a little too much, but hey, when will I ever get to do another safari? He took us to the southernmost point of not only South Africa, but all of Africa. And that was very unique. It's where the Indian and the Atlantic Ocean actually meet. And it was just really cool to kind of see that for yourself. There's a little marker right there that exactly where the longitude is. You can see where the Eastern Indian Ocean is and where the Atlantic Ocean is, and you can kind of hop over that line and just go from one ocean to the other. It was really, really remarkable to see that. So that was an unexpected surprise. We later continued on to the Garden Route Game Reserve, which was just outside of a city called Mussel Bay. And what was interesting as we got closer to the game reserve, the terrain then started to change. It started to look like the terrain that you do expect to see in a safari, where you do have some hills, but the land is becoming more dry, relatively flat, exactly how you would imagine the terrain to be for a safari. So we got to the Garden Route Game Reserve, the gates opened, and as we were being driven in, then we started to see the animals that we expected. We saw impalas, we could see the elephants in a distance, and when we approached the game lodge was actually what I thought it would be. It had that very African feel to it. Everything was made out of wood, but yet there was still a very nice feel of comfort to it, which was really nice. We got our keys, and then I didn't get the little hut that I was imagining, but my room was terrific. I walked in, I saw the bed, queen-size bed, had the mosquito nets, which you didn't have to use, but definitely gave the room a nice feel to it of just comfort and kind of what you would like to have on any type of trip, especially with a safari. Anyway, so what happened next? I took a long rest. I hadn't gotten many hours of sleep, so I laid down. I think I took a shower, in fact, in a very nice bathroom shower stall, and I crawled into bed and just let myself drift off for a couple of hours, and then we woke up to do our first official tour. And that was at 7 p.m. so that we would get the sunset. Our tour guide was a young man, about 25 years old. His name was, I believe, Reinhardt, and he was an Afrikaans gentleman. And he was an amazing guide. He really understood the animals that he was presenting to us. He knew their physiology. He was able to share aspects of their physiology. He was able to inform us about their habits, their customs, etc. He was really a bundle of information for us, which really livened the experience. As we entered into the actual part of the game reserve where the animals lived, we started with elephants, then it led to watching cheetahs, hunting springbucks, and we also further saw, I believe, bison, rhinos, and I believe that was it. Along the way, we were presented with plants and little animals. We saw mongooses running around, and it was just so enjoyable to see them, to look at these wonderful, beautiful acts of creation and just appreciate what they are. One other thing I was noting too about a safari, a game reserve, is that the environment, of course, the idea is to present these animals in their natural environment. However, you still have to control it a little bit because you need it to be conducive for human beings to be in there and not to have any unexpected surprises. So it was just a little learning moment where I realized this. So we continued to drive along, seeing the various animals, being in awe of them. And then we reached a point where we were able to stop and actually just chill for a moment. The sun was setting. It was extremely picturesque. The light was just changing, and it was beautiful to watch. And then we stopped, and of course, Reinhardt brought out some very nice drinks, some nice little snacks for us to eat. And it gave us an opportunity to kind of meet the other people that were on this particular part of the tour. Now, in my van, we had about 4 people plus Benjamin, our driver. However, in the actual safari, we had other people who had signed up for this particular part of the journey. So I got to meet them. There was a couple from Austria, 2 girls from Germany that were traveling together. Again, I'll mention we had the young girl from Dubai, and also the 2 girls that were with us from Switzerland. But we had a particular couple with us that stood out in a certain way, and it kind of helped me to kind of confront that, you always have reactions to people. That is to say, you automatically judge people or have a preconception of them when you meet them. The reason why I'm bringing this out is because the couple that I was introducing myself to, when I asked them where they were from, the woman kind of stuttered and said Russia, and instantly my mind thought what? Well, because of the war in Ukraine, my mind instantly thought bad, which isn't good because before the war I'd never had that idea regarding Russia. However, because of the media coverage and the situation with the war in Ukraine with Russia, that was my reaction. I was not very proud of that. You would like to think I'm more evolved that way. But of course, I was quick to not let that idea dominate me. And I looked at her and I said, she's definitely nervous to say that. And I need to do something to establish common ground. I need to make this person feel comfortable because they really have nothing to do with that. So I quickly said, hey, my brother speaks Russian. And she goes, oh, really? And I kind of played around with the Russian words he had taught me. And I even talked about a song that he would listen to learn Russian. I said the title, and she looked at me like, that's kind of weird. And then she realized, no, you're trying to say this. I go, well, see, I don't know any Russian. She goes, no, the words you're pronouncing them well. Okay, great. But the point of that was that I just wanted to make her and her husband feel better, not feeling bad that they have to feel awkward about anything. So anyway, that was just an interesting moment in our journey. And I really made a point of, anytime I encountered them, just to say hi, and I even learned their names. Their names were Katya and Victor, and I just felt it was important not to allow preconceived ideas to dominate my mind like that. And it's really a lesson for all of us that we should never allow those thoughts to dominate. They enter our minds, no doubt, but we should never allow prejudice or those preconceived ideas to get the better of us. Anyway, we continued on, and then we got back to the lodge and had dinner. Dinner was remarkable. Sat around the table, had some very interesting conversation with some of the girls, and of course, with all of us coming from different parts of the world, we got to exchange a few ideas about particular topics. Of course, talked about the safari itself, And then later we went to sleep, and boy did I sleep. Boy did I sleep. I was really tired. And of course that was good because we had to wake up early for our morning tour, which was important because of course animals can be maternal or nocturnal. Since we went in the evening, different animals were out. In the morning, we hopefully would see maybe some other animals. So woke up early morning, got the coffee, of course, but I was in a very appreciative mood. I was really reflecting upon the natural world and the beauty around me. Of course, so excited to see more animals and to see them be unique and them be beautiful. I was so into that idea that even this little sparrow that flew on the deck, I looked at it, and sparrows, we see them all the time, but he was just there. And I looked at him, and he had a very beautiful chestnut brown breast. And I just said out loud to him, "You too have been made pretty in your own time." And he was beautiful, just like everything else out there. And we started on the morning tour. We did get a few little bits of bad news. The giraffes, we weren't going to see them because they were on the other side of the reserve, one that we couldn't reach. Too bad. But we continued on and got to see antelopes. We were hoping to see the hippos, but the hippos were actually asleep. So all we saw of them was the snouts of their noses coming out of the water and going back down. Very disappointing. I love hippos. I got to see them in Indonesia, but I was really hoping to see them again. Didn't work out, but okay. Life moves on. We also got to see the lions. They have about 3 lions, 1 male and I think 3 females. But we didn't get to see them up close. They were really into the field and away from the road, and we didn't get the chance to see them like we got to see the cheetahs, who were a little more up close and personal. But it was still remarkable to see them over there and just enjoy them existing as they were. So let's see, how did the rest go after that point? I think we were getting hungry at that point. It got the ride. During the ride, we all got very quiet. Even Reinhardt noticed that. He says, "You're all very quiet." And I said to him, "Oh, we're just reflecting." But in truth, we were really hungry, I think. And we got back to the lodge, had a very fine breakfast, ate as much as we wanted, met up again with Benjamin, and then we set off. And setting off was very much like the last moment to reflect upon what we had seen. And I felt like I was just left in silence. I was left in silence because I was in complete awe of what I had witnessed. And that was less than 24 hours. But yet it left such an impression on me. The beauty of the natural world, the beauty of the animals and the acts of creation that we got to witness. I was just left speechless. And realizing that I got exactly what I wanted. I wanted a natural experience. Nothing about the safari felt gimmicky. It felt as real as it could be for the circumstances. And it felt completely organic. So I was just so happy that I got to have that experience. And we continued on. Benjamin decided to take us a different route so that we were able to see other things along the way. And as we left kind of the dry, flat area, we went back to more of the agricultural field. But we took a little bit of a detour, and it became more mountainous. And we got to visit one city called Hermanus, where we were hoping to see whales, but didn't, and that's okay. We got a little break and got to just... I got gelato. I was super excited about that. I got to eat some gelato. And then we continued on to a certain point where we got to see some penguins, which was, it was pretty cool. But then as we got closer to Cape Town and we got along the beach, and the beach areas just against the mountains was just fantastic. It was absolutely beautiful. I was so happy. Took some amazing shots and so thrilled to see this side of South Africa, just adding to the experience. But what was interesting along the way is that we actually started to talk more in the group. For example, Benjamin was curious about Zira. That was the girl from Dubai. That was her name, Zira. He started to ask her about Islam, and she was more than happy to talk about Islam with us. He got to pose some interesting questions to her, and she was able to share. She was very, very open, encouraged us to ask any questions that we might have had. But then we took the opportunity to talk to Benjamin about living under apartheid. And at first I was very reluctant. I didn't want to bring up any bad memories. So I took a moment when we stopped to just ask him if we could ask him in the group. And he said, of course. He started by saying that it's okay because we have to, in order to move forward, we have to know where we came from. So that was the position he took when it came to talking about apartheid, that it was a horrible experience, but yet it was part of the experience. It was what happened before, and that, of course, influences what the future is now. He was very open about some of the experiences that he encountered, about, of course, his every move being monitored by the authorities, the pressure he faced in some areas to have to speak Afrikaans, and I just appreciated so much of his openness in that conversation. It added more to the experience. And then by the time I was dropped off, I was home, but yet so thrilled to have had that weekend, to have had that experience, to feel the way I felt, just so appreciative of the physical world around us. And that was definitely one of the lessons I took away I took away from the experience, I should say, is just that, there are other life forms out there, of course, and that have a right to exist, and that they're so beautiful in their own unique way. One little sad note, though, was when we encountered the rhinos. I was just so happy to see them. They were magnificent, so powerful looking. And I turned to Reinhard and I asked him about it. And I go, how is the rhino population doing? Are they still endangered? And he said, yes, we're losing them. And the reason why we're losing them is because it is still believed by many that the rhino's horns have some type of medicinal properties to them that can, cure disease, cure aging, etc. And Reinhard says that's not true. The rhino's horns are made of keratin, which is the substance our nails and our hair are made out of. There's nothing special to them, but yet they're being hunted for them. And it just really breaks your heart, because the rhino is the one animal that I can see us losing completely in my generation, in my lifetime. And to know that human beings are hunting these animals down for something that is completely useless, you just shake your head and you go, how ridiculous it is. But yet that is the situation with so much of our environmental issues right now, that human beings are ruining our home with this concept that it's ours. It is our home, but it is not ours. It belongs to someone else. And it's so foolish. And what human beings are doing right now to the planet is just ridiculous, and it is heartbreaking. And then, of course, along the way, it was so refreshing to encounter people from different walks of life. It was neat to learn their story, learn their experience, appreciate how they view things. Everyone from Benjamin to the Russian couple, understanding that we all come from a different way of life, but yet we are so much the same. It's just remarkable to reflect upon that and to feel that appreciation in your heart. And at the end, just so glad I had the experience I wanted to, and I want to do it again. I'm hoping that somewhere down the road, whether it be here in South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, that I will be able to go on a safari again and experience that all over. So anyway, friends, I just wanted to share that experience with you, and I hope you're all doing well. Again, this is Rick, your favorite digital nomad, and this is Finally Breathing.